Welcome to the Agency Insider Show. I'm your host, Navneet Kaushal, and today we have an exciting episode lined up for you. We are joined by Bill Gaule, the SEO director and co-founder of Sculpt, a B2B SEO and content marketing agency. Bill is an expert in content marketing, strategy, and SEO copywriting, and we are thrilled to have him share his insights with us today. Will, welcome to the Agency Insider Show.
Thanks for having me, Navneet. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before we dive into the main topic, could you give our listeners a brief introduction about yourself and your journey in the digital marketing world?
Yeah, sure. So I guess, it probably all started about 10 years ago. I studied marketing in college or university, depending where you're from, and got a couple of internships post education, and then ended up working in a startup. That was marketing as a job title, but really it was more product development, did a little bit of everything. And then from there, after taking a little bit of time out teaching English, I went and got a job in an agency. And really from that point, that was purely SEO focused. And it's really the last kind of 6 years or so, I've been largely focused on SEO. And then earlier this year, myself and my business partner got together to form Sculpt, as you mentioned. So
okay,
that's the high level, the quick version.
Okay, that's fascinating, of course. Your experience in B2B SEO and content marketing is truly impressive. So let's jump into our first segment related to content marketing strategies. Now, you are known for your expertise in content marketing. So can you share some of the most effective content marketing strategies you have implemented for B2B companies?
Sure. I mean, from our point of view, we would focus primarily on SEO. And as a strategy for B2B companies, our main strategy really is the concept of flipping the marketing funnel. So you have your top, middle, bottom of funnel. A lot of conventional or historic approaches would have been to start at the top of the funnel, which would have higher search volumes.
Right.
We would focus more at the bottom of the funnel, which is albeit lower search volumes, generally speaking, but higher intent, higher commercial intent. So we would basically create topics, go after those topics, those keywords that are very much business intent, high commercial intent, and go from there and then work our way up the funnel. It's not a perfect science. It's not that we would only do bottom of funnel before we would ever touch anything further up the funnel, but 80% of the time, that's where we would start. And yeah, so as a high level, that would be the winning strategy in going after the available opportunities that are there. So yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. Now, so how do you approach creating original content that ranks well in search engine? So do you have any specific methodology which you can share?
Yeah, so I guess it's a combination of, probably before I even could answer that, one of the first things that we would do would be have an ICP call with the client. So basically focusing on the client's ideal customer profile. And from there, we can understand who that person is, what they look like, what are their pain points, where are they in their buying journey, etc. Right. From that point of view, then we can create much better content, because when you understand them, you can write accordingly. It's like how would I put it? Yeah, when you can understand your customer or your potential customers in a deeper way, the content is naturally going to resonate a lot better. Whereas if your understanding is more surface level, a bit more superficial, the content generally, it tends to be a little bit more vague, a little bit more general, even the language itself. So I would say just by going deep on the research to begin with, that's going to set you up for much better success. Beyond that, there would obviously, we would use specialist writers, and there would be a lot of back and forth with the client using their data, whatever data we can get our hands on. And just, I suppose then on more of a tactical point of view, if we're going after whatever the keyword might be, looking at the search results, really analyzing what's ranking, why is it ranking, has the search intent is it being truly hit upon in the search results right now? Is Google missing something? And how can we make this better for our ICP, not just better than what's currently ranking, but actually better for the ICP? And I guess often because the typical approach is you see a bunch of pages ranking in Google search results, and the automatic reaction would be to just create more of the same and make it better. Sometimes you need to take a step back and look at, is this actually what the reader, what the searcher really wants? And is it really hitting search intent? But in order to do that, you have to, I suppose, take a step back. So, that's the general process. It would be using the data that you have, unique insights, and particularly the ICP research.
Okay. And how do you balance the need for SEO friendly content while with maintaining a unique brand voice? Is there any specific, because based on the ICP, so how do you do that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? So how do we balance the ICP?
How do you balance the need for SEO friendly content with maintaining a unique brand voice?
I don't think it's been too much of an issue in that. For us, we would create templates,
okay,
or create an outline for our writers of what we believe is the type of page that will rank within SEO. So it's checking the boxes algorithmically, but also crucially, from, as we mentioned, from the search intent point of view, is this going to resonate with the user? But to balance that then with, is that on brand? And in the very early stages, we would always work alongside, typically it's the founder, but it could be the CMO, whoever it might be, someone that really knows the brand inside out. And inevitably, that first month of publishing, there's a bit of back and forth in terms of the language, etc. But I think it's a bit of a learning process, I guess, for the writers and for ourselves, and just getting to know the brand. But the truth being, probably it gets better as time goes on. Like the second month is quicker than the first, and so on. So the balance is, we always try to create quality, but maintaining SEO in mind while having input from people within the organization. So it's not a perfect science, but there's probably a few different factors going on to try to achieve that.
Okay. Now, content marketing obviously has evolved rapidly over the years. From your perspective, what are the core principles businesses often miss when starting out with content marketing?
The core things that they will miss when starting out with content marketing, I would say it's often the bottom of funnel keywords. Often, whether it's by design or coincidence, a lot of content that I see B2B companies doing, particularly if they're just starting out, maybe they have 10 blog posts, 20 blog posts. The majority tend to be, maybe they've gone after that high volume keyword, that maybe what is definition, that very top of funnel post, or maybe it's an opinion piece, like a thought leadership piece. But very, very rarely I see new B2B companies go after bottom of funnel content, like, for example, a competitor alternatives, or a competitor versus competitor, or even a product list post. Maybe the best what is a little bit more common, but I think understandably there's probably a natural hesitation to want to go after something like that, where you would cover your competitors, because the natural reaction is, why would I cover my competitors on my blog post? Why would I talk about them? To which I would say people are going to be searching your competitor alternatives regardless, with or without you. You might as well use that opportunity to get in front of the right eyeballs at the right time in their buying journey. Albeit you don't have to necessarily put it on your blog or front and center on your website. You could have a separate subfolder if you prefer. But yeah, I would say that's probably it. It's not going after the obvious short-term opportunities that are going to deliver results in a shorter time frame. So that probably comes from a lack of strategy, but that's probably the obvious one, I would say.
So when somebody should create this bottom of the funnel content, does it make sense to do, because for example, competitor A versus B, does it also make sense to run a little bit of Google ads on it, or what is your take on that?
Yeah, well, I would be Personally, I'm in favor of a company using Google Ads.
For the bottom of the funnel.
Yeah, well, yeah, for the bottom of funnel. Yeah, I mean, typically it's going to be bottom of funnel, but I guess I'm not a PPC expert, but if depending on how it's set up say if you leave that run for over the course of a month, inevitably Google Ads is going to pick up more and more keywords, more and more search terms that you wouldn't have thought about otherwise. So yeah, going after the bottom of funnel keywords, whether it be a competitor or comparison or alternatives or whatever we deem or the client would deem as an obvious keyword to rank for, that would make a lot of sense. But I think you can then later on, you can create content. So for example, if you've identified that this keyword or a series of keywords is now driving conversions within Google Ads, that's pretty good data to have to say,
right.
Okay, let's create content, organic content, targeting these keywords. For me personally, when I see a client, when I start working with a client and if they have Google Ads, that's something I always enjoy because it's a great starting point and it's a great data source to have.
Right. So when you are doing that, so are you a fan of topical clusters?
Not really. Well, topical clusters in the conventional sense, not so much. Not that I'm against it. It's just my standard approach would be, as I said, would be kind of flipping the funnel, starting bottom, working the way up. The wider question being, if this topic is relevant to the customer in their customer journey, is that going to help them along the way? And is it going to help position our client, our product, our service in front of them? So if that happens to be related, yes, but I haven't personally really followed that in that deep a sense.
Okay. Now, could you share an example of a client or a project where the right content marketing strategy made a significant impact? You don't need to really name the client, but just for our audience.
Yeah, sure. So I guess for a recent client we worked with in the B2B SaaS space, we more or less after as of the time of speaking now, it would be 4 months in, I guess. But we basically 3x'd trials from the blog YOY. So the first month was just research strategy, and then the second month we went to publishing and so on. Right. But by the end of the third month, the trials from the blog, directly from the blog post, had gone up, and it was basically a 3x, which, albeit that was after 2 months of publishing, and to put like a number on it, that was around $36,000 lifetime value of extra just from the blog. So the hope being, obviously, that would grow and compound over time. But yeah, that would be an example of something we've done recently.
Okay. So when you publish this type of content, do you keep anything in mind? For example, a content velocity, or how many pieces of content you will publish every month? Do you have any methodology for that, or any science, as we say, behind it?
Well, our standard methodology up to now has been about 10 articles. We found that to be the sweet spot in terms of keeping it sustainable, manageable, maintaining quality for ourselves, for our writers, while still delivering results. But naturally, I suppose that is a question then of scale. Like, if we could hypothetically double that, then yes. But I suppose for ourselves, we're very conscious not to be overstretched and lose quality, because while I understand the importance of quantity, quality has, in my view, would have to be maintained. But in relation to the research, and I'm not going to be able to quote the specifics, there was a study that I saw earlier this year that in the B2B space, it was something like 8 to 15 articles per month was around the sweet spot. Whereas if you did like 3 to 4 or 5, it basically got exponentially higher. But I think after about 15, it began to drop off a bit. And I would love to be able to tell you I remember the name of the study. I'll see if I can find it and on to you. But that was more or less it. Obviously, look, I mean, a lot can change in the course of the year, but that's our approach.
Okay. Now, you often emphasize the importance of starting with strategy and SEO engagements. Could you break that down for us?
Yeah, so as in like at the beginning of a working relationship with a client?
Right.
Yeah, so like for me, strategy is the fundamental thing to develop. It's like before getting in a car, you would have ideally an idea of where you want to go, the destination. So I guess the strategy is like the roadmap to get to where you want to go. And for us, month one, when we're working with the clients, the first 30 days more or less is dedicated to strategy. And as I mentioned, one of the first things we would do is have an ICP call. Within that, we would go very deep on really just understanding the customer and potential customers, what their pain points are, what resonates with them, where they are at, but also then looking at the client's products, their competitors, etc. So it's really just as best we can for ourselves, but then also in order to pass that information on to our writers, we would really, really go deep. And also extracting any potential insights from the client themselves, because often a business owner, well, should anyway, I hope, have the most knowledge about their client. But sometimes there can be, as Dan Kennedy would put it, like an ingrained assumption that you know everything about the business owner. And that's true to a point, but sometimes there might be, you're so deep in the weeds that there might be things you're overlooking, and a third party can extract those insights. Yeah, I mean, but turning back to your question, it's really the ICP call from there. And from once we have established that of who the ICP is, what they look like, that will help us to go after certain topics. And once we know what the topics are, and we can go into the more conventional keyword research methods using tools like Ahrefs, Keywords Everywhere, etc. And then I would cluster the keywords. I can go into more detail on that, but that's kind of that's the core of it to begin with.
So now, when it comes to copywriting in SEO, what's your advice for writing content that speaks to both search engines and audience?
I think it's not. I don't think it's one or the other. I think you can do both. So in my experience, and again, it's probably a little bit cliche, but I always try to write for the user first and foremost. And I think as long as you're loosely still applying the SEO best practices, you can have success in both in terms of resonating with the user and algorithmically. For me, the first place to start would be the SEO titles. And unless there's, well, to be honest, it's probably something I would need to even test further in terms of doing something really out there. But I've tested like putting different numbers in, using parentheses, using emojis. And a lot of the time, as long as there's a bit of tweaking and testing, those will often appear in SEO titles. Now, you have to be careful with the pixel length or the character length. Often you can get that into the SEO title and it'll be more something that will resonate more with the user, but also still appear. So yeah, I would just say it's testing. I think I've probably gone a little bit off course with your question there, but if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense actually. Now, are there any specific tools or methodologies you swear by for effective content strategy or copywriting?
Yeah, there's probably a handful that I would use myself. I'm a fan of Ahrefs. That's probably my go-to SEO tool, just for a bit of everything, but keyword research at the start. I combine it with Keywords Everywhere just to get a different source of data. In terms of really developing the strategy, I use Keywords Insights, and that's really for clustering the keywords. So once I have all the list of potential keywords that I could go after using Ahrefs, looking at the competitors, the client's competitors, what else? Yeah, analyzing PPC data. Anyway, when I have all of those keywords at the end, I would put them all into a tool like Keywords Insights, and that basically clusters all the keywords into a primary keyword and secondary keywords. I generally would set it myself to, if 2 sets of search results have 4 similar results or more, that would be considered one topic. And from there, once that's done, that would give me a very, very good indication of the keyword and the secondary keywords per topic, and therefore likely per page that I need to create. Beyond that, I would also use Keywords Insights for analyzing the search results and developing the outline for a said topic. I have used topic, phrase in the past. They're good tools as well, but at the moment I'm using Keywords Insights. And
So do you use anything like Surfer SEO?
not at the moment. I'm using Keywords Insights to really analyze the SERP. I have used Surfer though in the past. It's a good tool, although I have heard good things about it recently, so I'm curious to try it again. But yeah, Keywords Insights is probably, I'd say in terms of pure SEO, Ahrefs, Keywords Insights, and Keywords Everywhere are the three main go-to tools that I would use.
You also mentioned that you have a primary and a secondary keyword. So are there any set number of primary and secondary keywords you go after?
No, it depends. I mean, like, so generally I have one primary keyword per page, and the secondary keywords are keywords that in the eyes of Google anyway are likely the same search intent. So let's say, for example, I'm creating, the primary keyword is best accounting software. And then the secondary keywords might be best accounting tools, best accounting softwares 2025, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Sometimes there can be a little bit of ambiguity because, say, accounting tools versus accounting software, should that be the same? Should that be the same article, or should that be two different articles?
Right.
How I determine that is using the Keywords Insights clustering methodology, because if the search results for accounting tools and best accounting software, if they have 4 or more results in similar, like, so if the search results are basically the same, that's a very, very, very strong indication that it should be one topic. Whereas if they're one result in common, it's likely a different set of topics. So that's, I could potentially have one primary keyword and 100 secondary keywords, depending.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Of course, the clustering and of course comparing the SERP is one of the best method, I would say, right?
Sure.
So Anna, just to give an idea, so there is no cap for how many keywords you go with one piece of content, or is there a cap for that?
A gap for, so when you say gap, as in what?
Not cap.
Oh, a cap. Oh, cap. Sorry. Is there a cap for the amount of keywords? Well, I guess if the question is, am I looking to, let's say, for example, there's 100 secondary keywords. If the question is, am I looking to try and place all of those keywords within?
Yeah. So basically, let's say if there is an article, do you have like, would you go after 5 secondary keywords, or will you stop at 10 or 20, or there is no limit?
It depends. I'll have my primary keyword, right? In your title, H1, etc. And that's going to be a core part. But then I'm looking at the secondary keywords, and it's going to depend to what extent those secondary keywords differ from the main primary keyword. So let's just say, go back to our accounting software example. So let's say hypothetically we've best accounting software, and then some of the primary or the secondary keywords are best accounting softwares, best accounting software 2025, best top accounting softwares, the ultimate top accounting software. They're all variations fundamentally of the same thing. But if you identify keywords that are like best accounting software for small business, best accounting software for growing business, and if for some reason we think that needs to be on the one article, then I'll make a point to really include that. I'll also look at the people also ask data. I'll have a look in Quora, Reddit, look at the other search results, look at that data to see, is this what the search intent is? Because if sometimes you can have a keyword and there can be like mixed search intent. It seems that the obvious thing is this one keyword, but when you actually dig a bit deeper, there could be that keyword could mean different things to different people. And yet, and that's where the judgment call comes in, because sometimes you can have the clustering data might say this needs 2 articles. But if you really dig deeper, you think, I know that's what the clustering data says, but I'm looking at this here and there is no dedicated article for best accounting software for mid to large size account softwares or whatever it might be. So it's a little bit of a judgment call on that. So I don't have this, I'm not overly rigid in terms of the number of keywords, but I try to cover the topic as best I can while also being strategic of keyword placement. Yeah, in your classic places too, like in your H1s, your headings, your alt tags. And also in supplemental content, maybe at the bottom, your FAQs is a great place to
Yes.
SEO the content without necessarily sacrificing the UX and the quality at the start.
Right. Now, let's dive a little bit into copywriting. How do you blend effective copywriting techniques with SEO best practices?
I think for me, good copywriting, SEO is good copywriting,
Okay.
at least on the content side. So it's like two sides of the one coin. And maybe this is a question of semantics, because SEO can be, we often think SEO is, which is understandable, search engine optimization, to rank in search engines, appear in search. But I would contend the role of an SEO probably goes even a step further than that. It's to actually help drive business results from, yes, we want the searcher to click on the page, but what they're going to do from there also would fall under the remit of the work we do. Now, that's just me personally, but I think copywriting would be, or is, an essential part of it. So how do you blend it? I think, as I mentioned earlier, like, say the SEO title as the classic place. So using different methodologies to really get that SEO title to pop. So you want to have, say, your primary keyword in the SEO title. That would be the best practice from an SEO point of view. But you also want to make that SEO title attractive to click, to really pop in search results. So one of the best ways to do that, maybe have the year in the title, use parentheses. There's a famous copywriter, Gary Halpert, he said parentheses, it's like eye relief for the user. So if you see a list of search results and there's no parentheses, often that can really catch attention. Likewise, an emoji can be thrown in there sometimes too, and really highlighting a benefit, or just the main reason to click within the titles. Often it could be, let's say your title is, or your keyword is best accounting software. You can have best accounting software in parenthesis.
Right.
I don't know, works fast 2025 emoji, or something like that. That's just off the top of my head. And then it just follows on from that into the content, making sure the intro really aligns with the title. And maybe this is slightly more of a formatting point, but I would really be conscious of avoiding blocks of text, have shorter sentences, shorter paragraphs. I mean, you can mix up a bit, but using bullet points, bolding occasional words, and definitely sprinkling in CTAs in your content, not just at the end of the content, because particularly if it's long form content, there's a good chance that the majority of your users may not even get to the bottom of the page. So getting to the point very, very quickly, i.e. answering search intent, but doing that in an effective way in terms of your writing.
So let's talk a little bit about linking. So do you have any methodology which you follow? Let's say you're writing a long form content. So, okay, I'm going to give 2 internal links, 3 external authority links, something like that. Do you have a methodology which you follow?
Yeah, so generally I link from, so yes, I would engage in internal linking naturally, but I would link from relevant content topics to another. Right. So whatever the topic might be. Okay. In terms of specific numbers, I generally per page, in terms of internal links, I probably wouldn't go more than 4 to 5 internal links. Okay. It's not, I mean, again, it depends, but that's, as a ballpark, that's generally what I look for. And yeah, if there's relevant external links and relevant content, or particularly if it's authoritative within that space, I would link to them as well. In terms of anchor text, across the site, I always try to vary it as best I can. So I would definitely include the primary keywords of the page you're trying to rank in your anchor text, but again, I'd go look at the secondary keywords, mix it up a bit. So yeah, I generally go for a diversification within anchor text, not just exact match, but the primary keyword is definitely going to be in there as well. Okay.
Now, can you also share some tips on writing compelling meta descriptions and title tag that not only ranks well, but also encourage clicks?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I was saying, for the title tags, I would try and include numbers, try and include parentheses, try and include emojis. include the primary keyword and some sort of benefit, or maybe it could be a power word, a descriptive word, something that's really going to catch the attention of the user. So, if you had like best project management software, then in parenthesis, cut time in half or reduce or quicker speed or something like that, that can really pop. Meta descriptions, yes, just to be honest, I actually spend little time on meta descriptions. I should spend a bit more, but typically I often get a bit of content from the introduction and repurpose it, because if the introduction itself should be to the point and very concise, so often you'll extract the meta description from there.
Okay. Now, how has AI impacted SEO copywriting, and how do you see this evolving in the near future?
It's a good question. I think it's definitely affected it insofar as speed. Like, it's definitely you can create content now a lot quicker, and you can definitely use it a lot more for ideation. Personally, as of this moment in time, I would stop short of saying that you can outsource your effective content marketing, effective SEO content to AI. As I mentioned, we still use specialist writers, but we're not stupid either. Obviously, AI is there. We have to be able to leverage that and use that as a tool as best we can. But for the moment, as far as I can tell, it would be more on the ideation side, and maybe rewriting some certain concepts depending on the content, obviously. But
right,
it's more of a tool, I think, for writers. I still do a lot of the core writing myself on, well, say for example on social media, on LinkedIn. I don't really use AI, but I definitely use it in terms of ideation. But I know our writers, they're aware of it, but as far as I'm concerned, I guess it's as long as it's quality at the end of the day. And
right.
I think at the moment, that's, in my view, you still need a good human writer to do that.
So is there any favorite AI model or software or LLM you like to use?
Yeah, it's probably, at the moment, I'd say Claude. That's one I'm enjoying.
I use Claude for writing, right? I agree with that.
Yeah. No, it's very, very good. No, I still use ChatGPT from time to time, particularly maybe some of the GPTs, like the Scraper GPT.
Right.
It's, again, as I said, it's good for ideation. Like, often a typical thing I would do is like maybe if I'm doing an optimization for a blog post, I'll get the AI, say the Scraper GPT, to analyze the URL, and I'll ask for something like, give me 3 to 5 customer questions that would go well in this article that have not been answered already. So something like that would be a good use case.
Okay. Now, have you tested a use case where content created with the help of AI ranked well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware. I haven't done it in our current agency, but in the past we have used AI even going back to maybe 3 years ago, before ChatGPT. I remember testing with Jasper using AI, and it's still ranking to this day. Albeit in that specific case, I did use my brain essentially. I wasn't just outsourcing only to AI. But I mean, there's been other use cases where I've seen AI rank. I haven't done it directly myself, but I've seen it just rank just off that alone. But does it drive business results? That's another question.
Right. It ranked. Right.
It ranked. Yes, it ranked. Yeah, for sure. You can definitely rank with AI, but is it business results? That's the question mark.
Okay. For our final segment, let's focus on improving conversions with content build. What are some key elements of high converting content?
So I would say key elements of high conversion content is, well, the very first step is making sure that it's actually in a stage of the user's awareness level that they would be looking to convert. So, i.e., bottom of funnel content. So you could have a really, really perfect CTA on a top of funnel piece of content, but if the user is just not mentally ready to buy, if they're not looking to buy, it's likely not going to make a difference. So you have to make sure that the CTA you create, the call to action, is aligned with their search intent, where they are in the marketing funnel, what their stage of awareness is. So I would say that's the first thing, being aligned with what that is and determining what a conversion is. Because on a top of funnel piece of content, a piece of success might actually be subscribing to a channel or downloading your email or reading another blog post. That might be high converting in that case. Whereas on the bottom of funnel, it's probably like a demo or a trial or a sign up. So making sure that you have the right CTA for the right stage of the user's awareness. The next thing I would say would be having multiple CTAs. So I would say to your listeners, trying something like MS Clarity, installing that, letting that data run for at least say a month. It's basically a heat mapping recording tool. You can see how the users are interacting with your website, where they're spending time, what they're looking at. And I've noticed myself that on longer form content, more often than not, 90% of users are not actually scrolling all the way down to the bottom. So therefore, if you go for the conventional approach of having only one call to action and it's at the bottom of the page, odds are your users aren't even seeing it. So for that, I would say have multiple CTAs in different places, and you could start right up at the top, have one at the bottom, and also maybe a sticky CTA that remains present as you scroll. Can work pretty well. And yeah, just making the CTA visual as well. So in terms of then the copy, it would, again, being aligned with what the search intent is. So rather than have a generic call to action piece of copy like sign up now or get started, having something like scale your automation agency with us today, or whatever it might be, specific to the copy and where they are in their customer journey, as I said, but also in terms of the topic itself. And potentially you could even go one step further in addressing any objections, like it's free or no credit card is needed or whatever it might be. So I think if you can apply some of those tips and kind of think about it that sense, that would go a long way.
Okay. Now, of course, those are valuable points. Now, how do you approach creating content for different stages of the buyer's journey to improve overall conversion rates?
How do I create different types of content for different stages of?
How do you approach creating content for different stage of the buyer's journey to improve overall conversion rates?
Yeah, so I think you got to look at it holistically. So as I mentioned, if you're creating content that's bottom of funnel, know what the KPIs, know what success looks like for that. So in B2B SaaS, typically that would be demo, sign up, a trial. It's something commercial intent in its value. Whereas if it's top of funnel content, quite likely that is not going to work or work as well, because the user is not looking for that at that point in time. They're in more of a research phase. They're in an awareness state of mind. So maybe subscribing to your YouTube channel, subscribing to your podcast, downloading an email newsletter or to your lead magnet, that's likely a better CTA and a KPI for success. So depending on where the business is, if they're just starting off, I would go more towards bottom of funnel. If they already have a lot of content and already a lot of bottom of funnel content created, then sure, you can go further up the funnel. Also, I think the other key consideration in that conversation is where their wider marketing is. So let's say you're focusing on SEO, but you'd also like to double down on LinkedIn or double down on your social media efforts. A blog post from SEO is a great source of ideation for further LinkedIn posts, we'll say. A blog post can work as a great content workhorse in that sense. However, if that's something you want to focus on, only creating bottom of funnel content is probably not the best type of content for repurposing for social media, that is, because you're probably not going to talk about your competitors on a LinkedIn post. Whereas a top of funnel piece of content is generally better for repurposing, distributing across social, across your newsletter, etc. Likewise, thought leadership is fantastic for that also, which you can embed into your content. Probably, I would say it tends to be a bit better, a bit more compatible the further up the funnel you go. So in some, I think it depends on the organization, where they're at, what they're focusing on just outside of SEO. Like if they have an eye on repurposing and they want to use their blog as an asset for repurposing outside of SEO, then that's going to play into it. But in general, it's knowing what the KPIs are per pieces of content. And as I said, the top of funnel and the bottom of funnel success is going to be different depending on the type of content and where the user is.
Okay. Now, can you share an example of how you have significantly improved conversions for a client through content optimization?
Yes. So probably a very, very simple thing would be, well, I guess it's led to rankings as well, but just a 2-minute job that I did recently was updating the title and updating the publication date. It was in position 3, it jumped to position 1, and it was a bottom of funnel piece. It was already fairly well written. That led to an increase in rankings, but it led to an increase in conversions, more or less doubles. Now, it was, albeit starting at a lower point, it was only getting a handful of trials per month, but the fact that it was position 1 was enough just to got more attention in there. Other things that have, I would say, a small move that can have an outside return is just including more call to actions, and in particular, maybe like the sticky call to action or sticky CTA that's constantly present. So I don't have specific statistics offhand for that, but I know just anecdotally that when you have more CTAs in the content, but not in an intrusive or annoying way, that definitely has helped with conversion rates.
Okay. Now, do you have any specific different strategies when it comes to doing content for these type of content for sites which are new and sites which are fairly old, in terms of, let's say, DA or authority or history?
Yeah. So I mean, you could argue if SEO is even the right approach to begin with, if a site if it's literally just starting off, as in if that will be the channel to focus on, maybe Google Ads might be a better play at that moment in time. So there's a lot of variables there, and down to their budget, to their product market fit.
But the content part, do you have a different set of approach when the business is starting out versus the older website?
Yeah. So yes, to answer your question, potentially, I would. If it's a new website, typically that means they're going to have lower authority in terms of backlinks. So I'm probably not going to go after the more competitive keywords. I'm going to be even more conscientious of the type of keywords that I choose and what's likely to rank. In terms of selecting a keyword, I basically have 3 criteria. One is it going to bring conversions, or whatever that conversion looks like? The second one is there some level of search volume? And then the third is it rankable? Can we actually rank for this considering where we're at? And depending on the authority of the site, I'm going to maybe weigh one factor more than another. Often, if it's a brand new site, or at least if they have low authority, I'm going into those spaces where I feel a keyword might be easier to rank for, and maybe I'm not going after the super competitive keyword. But to be honest, if it is something like B2B or B2B SaaS, they probably will need to engage in link building, because it'll be a bit of an uphill battle. So you can have success without link building, but it's going to be limited, because you're going to have you're kind of almost trying to do your SEO with maybe one of your hands tied. So you can get places, but you'll get a lot further with an authoritative site than not.
Okay. Now, do you believe in content repurposing? How does it contribute to better engagement and ultimately conversions?
To content repurposing. Fundamentally, I do believe in content repurposing. So a blog post for me is like a podcast. It's a great it's a great content workhorse. So you have a piece of content that you've taken the time to, the energy and the research, the time to create. You can use that way beyond just SEO ranking and search. So one blog post, particularly, as I said, if it's like further up the funnel, that's potentially 5 LinkedIn posts or 10 tweets. So not that it's a direct copy and paste, albeit occasionally it can be, but more often than not, it's a great source of ideation for those 10 social posts. So again, depending on the organization and where they're at, that can be a great place to start with for your social media efforts. But also in terms of repurposing, it can also be used as a sales and even a retention asset. So I know, for example, Cloudways, they, at least when I get their email newsletter, they often, and other companies, to be fair, they often recite or refer to their blog posts and repurpose some of their blog posts within their emails. And I know, just even as a sales asset, like if you're getting on a call with a potential client, I know we've done this ourselves as an agency. We took a couple of visuals from our blog posts that we have on our own site and reused it on a sales deck. So it's not just for social media, but can also be more, as a sales asset too. I forget what the second part of that question was. It was
the second part was, how does it contribute to better engagement and ultimately conversion? So does it help in conversions, the repurposing?
Yes, but probably not but more indirectly, in that, like, I guess, again, if you're just taking a step out and thinking holistically about it. So like, if you think social media is a great way to build awareness, it's a great way to build your brand. If someone has come through the sales cycle and now they're at a point where I'm going to potentially buy, but I'm not sure whether I'll buy from this person or this person. If you have a brand authority, if you're well known in the space, if they've seen your content at different points in time on social media, on Google, on your newsletter, on a podcast, 25 different times over the last 6 months, they're likely going to go and converse with you. So I would say building your brand in the bigger picture helps with everything from conversions, from SEO to Google Ads to everything, because
it gives you more exposure. So brand recall, that what would we say, right?
Exactly.
Okay, now let's go into some rapid fire questions. I have just 5 questions to ask, so just answer what comes first in your mind. Okay, are you ready?
I will try.
What is your favorite SEO tool?
Ahrefs.
Okay. Best book on content marketing?
The Copywriter's Handbook, Bob Loy.
Okay. A hobby you enjoy outside work?
Learning languages.
Okay. Which all languages you know?
Italian and Spanish.
Okay, that's good. All right, Bill, with that, we come to our end of our podcast. This has been incredibly informative discussions. And before we wrap up, what's one piece of advice you will like to share with our listeners about creating effective B2B content?
I guess I would say just take the time to research, over-index on researching at the start, because if you can develop that strategy and that fundamental awareness of your target audience, you'll set yourself up for a lot more success in the long term.
Okay. And thank you so much, Bill, for sharing your expertise with us today. Where can our listeners find out more about you and SERP Sculpt?
Yes, so you can check me out on LinkedIn, just Bill Gaule. Yeah, our website is serpsculpt.com. So yeah, either of those 2 places you can find out more.
Okay. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of the Agency Insider Show. I'd like to thank our guest, Bill, for his valuable insights into content marketing, strategy, SEO copywriting, and of course, conversion optimization. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, this is Navneet Kaushal signing off.